Welcome to our Thursday morning Mind the Moment session brought to you by Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and Tufts Health Plan. This is a place where we invite experienced mindfulness instructors to give us some words about how mindfulness has impacted their life, and then discuss as a community how we can incorporate these practices into our daily lives. And as you all know, I am Suzanne Rowe Palacino, and if you're new, welcome. And I'm very happy to be here as a little surprised because I mentioned Tara was going to be here this morning. Greg Topakian, mindfulness teacher and longtime meditator. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning, Suzanne. Nice to be here. Very nice to be here and with all of you. Nice to have this opportunity to practice together and to explore how mindfulness can help us live our lives. So
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So great to have you here this morning. So today, as we usually do, Greg will start us off with a question and then share some words with us and lead us in a guided practice at around 12 minutes or so. And after that, we'll have time for a little chat. So if you could go to the bottom of your screen and click on the chat, and just you have the opportunity to click the drop-down menu there to show everyone, and then you'll be able to see the people's comments as they come in. And there we go. So Greg, how would you like to start us off this morning?
Yeah, well, very fundamental question. How should I practice mindfulness? Do I just pick one target, like the breath, and try to keep it there? What happens if something else comes into the mind and bumps the breath away? Or what happens if nothing comes up? So what do you do? One target, many targets, no targets? How do you decide? What's wise? What works? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, folks, just go ahead and type in the chat what your typical experience is with that. Just to kick us off here, I feel like for the most part, I focus on my breath. And interestingly enough, I know sometimes folks use the feeling of the breath coming in the nose or the chest. I notice in the back of my throat. That's where I notice the most. And but depending on where I am, if I'm in nature, sometimes I'll move away from that focus. So it really depends. Depends on where I am and sometimes how I'm feeling.
Absolutely.
How about you, Greg? What's your?
I'm a breath guy to start with, to help settle the mind, and I'm a breath guy in the belly. But it all depends, you know, if I'm easily distracted, and we'll talk about this in practice in a few minutes. If I'm easily distracted, I'm maybe with the breath the whole time, or trying to, you know, when the breath wanders coming back. But if the mind is calm and settled, then whatever comes up is what's alive for me. Sensations in the back, sound, so forth. Really depends on how settled my mind is.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah, it looks like people have had similar experiences. Jackie mentioned I sometimes focus on a sound. It depends. Start to pay more attention to my body and physical sensations. Breath is my focus when I'm inside and I meditate in long, fast walks. The beat of the movement becomes my focus. My heartbeat. Start small. Do it when I walk and allow distractions to come in. Focus on the breath. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. You know, it's interesting how, you know, it sometimes can really vary.
Well, absolutely, as it should. And for each of us, how do we find our access? How do we find our way to open the door to being awake in the moment? And sometimes we need to make a little more effort, and sometimes it's more natural, as they say. It just sort of comes once we realize an intention to be present. But I love the answers, the responses people are offering. It seem like they're truly coming from their experience, right? And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
We do some book learning and talk listening to maybe offer pointers, but in the end, it's each of us, sitting down and practicing paying attention.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll start with this exploration for today. And for most of us, we're all, some of us are new to this, some of us have been practicing a few years, some of us many years. And I would say it's always wise, no matter where you are on that spectrum of years, that when we begin a practice on a given day, to at least explore how settled our minds are. Because the foundation of all this is a mind that can be focused. And so if it's going all over the place, the future, the past, yesterday, this email, this TV show, so forth, we're not going to get anywhere. So the beginning of our practice is often to just help the mind to settle down and to stabilize. And that approach we often call focused mindfulness. And it's often very appropriate to pick one target, and it can be any target that works for you. I'm a breath guy, but other people are a body sensation person, or a sound person, or heartbeat, whatever it is. We pick a target. We attempt to direct our attention to that target, to sustain attention there. And in the beginning, anyways, when the attention moves, wanders, we smile and choose to bring it back. All in the aspiration of trying to settle the mind down. All types of benefits to that, as many of you know, mental health benefits, particularly for those of us who worry about the future, which we have plenty of material to do so today. If the mind is going off to places that aren't helpful, our ability with experience to bring it back to one peaceful target can really help. So why don't we start for a few minutes doing this focused mindfulness. So I'll invite you to find a comfortable position for yourself and to first check in with the body, sensations in the body, making whatever adjustments will help you to promote relaxation and ease. And for this next couple of minutes, to pick your favorite target or anchor, a place of safety, of comfort, of groundedness for you. It could be the breath, it could be your hands touching, feet on the floor, your heartbeat, sound. And to just practice directing your attention to that one target. Making a gentle effort to sustain attention. And when the mind wanders, and it will for all of us at some point, to notice and smile, and to simply choose to bring it back to that initial target. Focused awareness. inviting the mind to settle down. Directing, sustaining, and returning. And now I'll invite you to reopen your eyes. And we'll move on to the next meditation. And this one we might call open awareness or choiceless awareness, flexible mindfulness. And in this case, rather than sticking to the one target, if we feel that the mind has begun to settle down and we're feeling some calm, if we are, okay, then what's often suggested is to not be so fixed on always returning breath, always returning attention back to the initial target. So if the mind wanders, and say initially it was the breath, and the mind wanders to sensations in the back, then sensations in the back become the new meditation object. Or if it comes to the sound of a bird outside, or a car driving by, that becomes the same meditation object, and we bring the same friendly curiosity to that. Now, this offers a whole different set of benefits for us. So mindfulness is more than just about focus. In this practice, what we're beginning to notice is the tendencies for our mind. Where does our mind tend to go? And to notice that. Does it tend to go to worry about the future, or regrets about the past, or replaying that conversation you had with your partner or your mother or your son? What are our personal tendencies, and can we notice this without getting entangled? So we notice, oh, there you are, and just pay attention to what's happening right now. So I'll invite you now, practice with this choiceless awareness, because we're not choosing what comes up. We start with our initial target, the breath, or feet on the floor, or hands in the lap, or sound. But if at any moment you notice that that initial target has been bumped from its place of prominence and replaced by something else, and our task is to simply bring that same friendly curiosity to this new object. Sometimes we give a 1 or 2 word note or label. Thinking, remembering, planning, back pain, whatever it is. Beginning to notice the tendencies of our own mind. Where does it go? Now I'll invite you to reopen your eyes again, and we'll move to a third type, sometimes called natural or spacious awareness. And in this case, we're interested in, sometimes it's said, being aware of awareness itself. So not being so focused on a target or an object or our anchor, but being just aware of space or nothing in the mind, and just being in touch with knowing that you're awake. And the benefit of this is we begin to see what might be called some universal truths of life, that anything that enters the mind is temporary and permanent, and not really me in any fundamental sense, but just things coming and going. So how do we access this natural or spacious awareness? So again, let's start. And I'll suggest maybe beginning with the breath here. And you're noticing the inhalation. And when you inhale, maybe you feel sensations in the body. But just as you complete the inhalation, there's a pause, there's a gap. Nothing. You notice that nothing, that space. And then the exhalation begins, maybe to a count of 4. And then it completes, and there's a gap, a space. Nothing. We're aware that we're aware in that moment. And then inhalation begins again. So noticing the gaps, noticing the spaces. And now I'll invite you to notice the space in front of you. Eyes are still closed, if you will. Your focus is just on the space in front of you. Nothing. And now what's above you? What's behind you? Just aware of being awake and present. What's to the right of you? What's to the left of you? You're not so much visualizing as you are just being present with what's around you. Space. Now I'll invite you now to reopen your eyes and come back to the room, come back to the group. And if you have any sharing you'd like to offer about your experience this morning, or questions or comments, we'd all love to hear it.
Thank you, Greg.
Pleasure.
I'm really glad that you explored this subject this morning, because I haven't done as much of that practice. So it's a great reminder of options we have.
Options we have, depending on the quality of mind. Again, if the mind is easily distracted and wandering, then maybe we stay at focus a little bit longer. And it's totally appropriate and wise. But sometimes we really get into a rhythm and the mind is nice and steady. And maybe we need to make less effort And that's why we often call it natural awareness, because this is natural. This is potentially natural for each of us if we can open up to it. And it's not necessary. In fact, this ultimate spirit of mindfulness is to be open to whatever arises in this open awareness. Oh, I see you. Comes and goes. To gradually expand the range of experiences that, we can be okay with, content with.
I'm curious if for folks, maybe we can go to the chat first. Someone found it, curious about it and wanting to try that again. Love that there's so many choices. Helps me feel successful each time I practice.
Yeah, because I'll tell you, when I started with this, the instruction was a little harsher and a little more severe. And it was like, I'd go into that meditation hall and, oh, I've got to get to 10 breaths in a row, or I've got to get to 20 breaths, and really working hard. And I get headaches. Well, so if that's happening to you, it's a little bit goal oriented, and we're all susceptible to that. That's a signal too. Okay, ease up on it a little bit. Okay. There's no prize here for getting to 10 breaths in a row if you're counting, or 20 breaths in a row. It's okay just to steady the mind. Okay. But if you're getting a little tense and hypervigilant, back off a little bit. See if you can just experiment in as if you're sitting back against a tree and just opening up and watching life. Something comes up, you notice. Maybe you make a note, beautiful, pleasant, or maybe loud, unpleasant, cold. But don't try to just stay with the immediate experience of it. And then whatever's next. And always aware of awareness in the background. Knowing.
And for folks that are maybe doing a longer meditation session, and let's say, for example, someone is going to sit and is feeling like the sit is going to be a more settled situation for them. Would one just go right into this practice and maybe just start with that? Or do you always recommend that people ease into it in the way that you've tried this morning?
Well, it depends. It depends. If you're beginning your practice and you've already been feeling kind of peaceful and settled, then it's a natural flow just to sit down and open up to whatever is arising. But often, for many of us, if we're sitting at the end of the workday, there's a lot of stuff churning in the mind, and so maybe it's wise. But again, it's up just for each one of us to just check in. So where's the mind going? Is it settled, or is it still reliving what happened this afternoon in that meeting or that email? And if so, if it is reliving or projecting into the future, to say, no, let me pick my anchor and just try to keep it there, just for a while to help it settle down. And then to experiment. It could be just even less than a minute or so. No, the mind is settled. And then open up. But here's the thing. I mean, we open up, and we're all humans here. We open up, and for a while, we're just with it, and we're not getting entangled. But maybe something grabs us, and before we know it, we're on the train of thought, so to speak. And we notice, and then we come back to focused awareness, just for a second, just to settle the mind, getting used to just not getting stuck. And then when the mind's settled again, we open it up again, and open it up to life, really. This happens, this arises, this passes, and on it goes, doesn't it?
Yeah. I know when I first tried open awareness in a retreat environment, it, because it was a little bit more of a container, or, it was just a weekend retreat, but they guided us to moving from our breath to just noticing the inside of our eyelids.
Yeah.
And it really, it was focused, but it was also, just exploring the light that you might notice from the inside of your eyelids.
Yeah.
It was a kind of an in-between focus and open, which was
Yeah.
really an interesting way to look at that.
And the more we open, we're experimenting with trying less hard, really. We're experimenting with having it be natural, so to speak, because that's really the end game for us here with this practice, right? Training the mind to be awake and present naturally in more and more of the moments of the day, informally, even when we're not formally practicing, so to speak. That's really the end game here. And so we're experimenting with that. And again, we're normal human beings. The mind might get entangled with something. We notice, we smile, offer kindness, bring it back, focus, and then begin again.
Yeah. Now I like that especially, Greg, because you've mentioned that it really it helps prepare us for our day-to-day experiences. And
Yeah.
we all practice, we all live most of our life away from meditation.
Yeah.
So it helps to get us used to being out in the world and living with those.
Used to noticing, noticing whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, Anne has mentioned something great here. Okay to vary, that it's okay to vary the point of focus.
Absolutely.
Specifically with an outside practice.
Checking in. What will help you now to be present? Really, what will help you? And it's your call. What do I need right now? What would help? You need to be present. You need to be present in order to really give yourself a good answer there. But it's totally appropriate to say, no, the mind is very distracted right now, right? That doesn't mean you failed. Actually noticing that is very important, right? Because that's going to happen sometimes. Okay, the mind is distracted. What would help?
Is
The
there
mind
any,
is settled. Yeah.
in this experience with what you've seen, Greg, is there any way that even if I'm feeling a little bit unsettled,
Yeah.
and where I'm feeling just like, even when I come back to the breath, it's not working, and is there any way that opening up can settle us even more?
Well, again, it's an experiment. Usually the suggestion is if we're easily distracted, we need to narrow the focus, but maybe the breath is too subtle. So sometimes it's helpful to practice what I call exaggerated breathing, which is breathing longer and deeper rather than just natural breathing, and maybe counting 4 breaths, 5 breaths in order to settle. Or sometimes, again, it's something as simple as this, standing up and practicing standing meditation. Because believe me, the body knows when it's standing. And so more awareness automatically goes to taking care of the body to make sure you don't fall, right? So it's not a balance exercise, but it is just, again, raising the ante a little bit. So sensations are a little bit more vivid, checking in with the body, focusing on body rather than, abstract thoughts. So sometimes, the first foundation of mindfulness, the body, it can be very helpful if the mind is unsettled.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like many times, if folks aren't used to standing meditation, if you do it, you're like, wow, I have to focus.
Right.
I have to focus
yeah.
more. Maybe I'm so used to sitting that I can easily, when I sit, I can easily find myself.
Yeah.
But when I stand, I'm
Yeah.
noticing my feet. I'm, like you said, I'm noticing my balance. So that's,
And you're letting the natural intelligence of the body emerge, you know. And let me just say one thing about that. Never seen anybody fall down. So not to worry. If you stand, and it's perfectly fine for you to put your hands on the table in front or the back of the chair. Again, it's not a balance exercise, not a competition, but it's just something to uh, make more pronounced, more vital, the sensations in the body to help draw attention.
yeah. Really great. Thank you so much, Greg. That's, I
Yeah.
think like people have mentioned in the chat, it really is good to mix it up sometimes.
Yeah.
It keeps it fresh. It keeps it,
Absolutely.
keeps our mind, it can refocus our mind in
Absolutely.
different ways.
Absolutely.
So thank you again for
Oh,
your teaching, for your
always my
practice.
pleasure. Yeah.
And thank you to everyone here for your practice. And as we
Thank
know,
you for your practice, everyone here. It makes it easier for all of us.
it does. We're so grateful for having everyone join this morning. And we will see you next week. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And we will see you next week. Mary Stargreen will be with us on Tuesday.
Great.
All right. Thanks again. See you soon.
All right. Take care, everyone. Be healthy.